Hi everyone, I'm Chyill and welcome back to another Battlerites video. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you guys some stream footage of me checking out Ulric's abilities and Battlerites, like what I think about them and all that, and then I'll share my first impressions of him with you guys with some Ulric gameplay going on in the background. If you're not interested in seeing the beginning part where I cover his abilities and rights one by one, then there's a timestamp either in the description below or a comment below which you can click on to bring you straight to the part where I share my thoughts on him. So with all that being said, let's begin. So first off, we have the left click, which is Hammer of Justice, and what it does is a melee attack that deals 10 damage, your weapon charges over time, and when fully charged it deals 20 damage and inflicts stun to the closest enemy and 12 area damage to nearby enemies. So the stun is 0.5 seconds. So let's try that out. Boom, there we go. It's a pretty wide arc actually, surprisingly. At first I was just expecting it to hit like maybe this two or something, but as it turns out it actually has like a almost, I would say maybe about 120-degree arc or something, and it can hit all three. And of course stunning the one that's closest to Ulric himself, doing 20 damage and then 12 to the rest. So elsewhere, he just does 10. And the attack speed is actually quite slow, so you know, nothing amazing. But I think the nice part of it is the stun, of course. Boom. And the range is actually quite decent, I would say. So yeah, pretty simple so far. Once again, it has like a 8-second cooldown, so pretty standard, just like Rukan, just like Sirius, just like Blossom and all that. So pretty interesting. Next up is Holy Light, his right-click ability, and that's his healing ability. Call down a beam of Holy Light that heals the ally nearest target. I'm guessing that's nearest to the targeted location for 14 health. So pretty much like Lucy's heal, but I think it's a little slower it seems. Kind of actually more like Sirius's heal, because you can sort of heal behind the wall with it, unlike Lucy's heal. So pretty good. I can't really see it, so let's just heal this guy. 14 health. 14 health. Of course right now I have no cooldowns on, that's why I can keep spamming it, but pretty good. 14 health is just nice, I think. Not too low, not too high. It's pretty good. Next up is Intervene, which is his movement ability. What it does is he becomes immaterial and dash forward to slam an enemy, dealing 12 damage. Dashing through an ally heals self and ally for 12 health, applies favor, recharges your weapon, and resets cooldown. Oh man, that's a mouthful. Cannot hit allies affected by favor. Favor increases the healing received from your abilities by 25% as well. So let's try it on this guy. Let me tank a couple of shots for this guy first. There we go. Boom. So 12 heal for each, and it makes them like receive like about 18 healing for that 5 seconds when favor is on the target basically. So let me off no cooldowns so that we can actually see the cooldown reset in action. So basically when I heal, then I can use space again, but when I use it again, it actually does nothing because the favor buff is still on the target. You kind of have to apply favor to have the recharge weapon, the reset, and all that. So yeah, what you can actually do is boom, heal, and then something like that. So pretty cool, pretty interesting. Little ability definitely gives him quite a lot of mobility, but at first glance it's like it feels really strong, but that's like the maximum range right there. And if you're alone without any teammates, you actually don't get the recharge and the reset and all that. And so yeah, you don't even get your self-healing when you do it. So say if I use this, I hit this guy, 12 damage, but I don't get the favor buff, I don't have the recharge, and I don't have the reset cooldown as well. So it's balanced in a way where you have to be within this distance of your allies, and plus you cannot have like a enemy in the way, of course. So like I can't go like this because you actually get stopped by the enemy, which is pretty cool. So anyways, the next ability is Radiant Shield. That's his Q ability. It's kind of like Bako's shield, but what it does is he puts up his shield, absorbs projectile and melee attacks in front of you. Absorbing an attack charges your shield up to 3 times and fires a wave of light in a cone, dealing 12 damage and inflicting blind when the effect ends if your shield is charged. Each charge increases the radius. And the blind debuff actually reduces sight range by 95%. So bear in mind the percentage matters here. And it's for 2 seconds because this blind effect, as it turns out, is actually a lot stronger than Croak and Pestilence's Blind. Okay, like so with Croak and Pestilence's Blind, you can actually still see a fair amount in front of you, like about this amount. But with with Ulric's Blind, it's literally all you can see is like pretty much just your hero. All right. So let me show you what I mean. I can't show you right now, but you can. So whenever you absorb an attack, you can shoot out like the blind thing. And if you absorb 3 attacks, if you saw the Ulric video, the preview video, you know that it's quite a big arc. And those little bolts of light that shoots out, that damages and blinds people, those triggers counters. So even though it's an AoE attack, it triggers counters basically. So yeah. Anyways, next up is his range ability, Smite, and what it does is it knocks nearby enemies back and replaces Holy Light with Smite, a projectile attack dealing 14, 18, 22 damage, and the effect lasts for 3 attacks or up to 5 seconds, and the effect can be cancelled by recasting the ability. So say you heal and then you use up your charges, right, and you're like, oh now I can't do much, so you can press your E, knocking back the enemy, and then you can do like 3 attacks, 14, 18, and then 22. At which point the effect ends, or if you cancel it prematurely, then you can like go back to healing if you like desperately need to heal your ally or something, you know. So for example, I'm gonna heal myself, this guy's gonna attack me, let's push him away, and it goes about that far, which is about a standard like Moss 1 range for a lot of range champions, I guess. So pretty fair, but like the cast time is actually quite long, so it's really easy for you to like let's see, it changed. Yeah, the cast time is 0.45 seconds. So it's really easy for you to like get panicked or like interrupted by stuff. So yeah. Next up is his R ability, Condemn, and this is another one of his like iframe ability. What he does is jump into the air and slam your hammer into the ground to send out a shockwave. This shockwave deals 10 damage and launches an enemy into the air for 1.8 seconds. So that's what he does. So during this time, it's like the target cannot be damaged, so it's basically kind of like an iframe for 1.8 seconds for the enemy in some ways, but it's just to keep enemies out of the fight, I guess. So you jump up for a little while and then you put an enemy out of the fight for a little while, which is pretty good. I think it's really strong because like it lasts for 2 seconds and the enemy literally cannot do anything to get out of it. I don't think like say you petrify or you incap an enemy, right? But Lucy clarity potions and then it just completely nullifies the effect. The fact that this guy is in the air, I believe, shouldn't be affected by clarity potion. So you can literally keep someone out of the fight for almost 2 seconds, just just like that, while avoiding something, of course. So yeah, pretty good. Next up is his shift space ability, Crusade, and it is pretty much just like his normal spacebar, except 2 things. Number 1 is that he goes through units instead of stopping at whatever unit or enemy that he comes into contact with, and plus it also applies a fading snare basically. Other than that, everything else is the same. It does a 1.5 second fading snare. So let me show that to you guys. So it's pretty strong snare, and the good thing is that it goes like almost twice as long, and it goes through units. So say you're being ganked by like 2 or 3 melee enemies, right? And you're struggling to get out because your spacebar is your only mobility ability, right? And you might be stuck, say, in between these 3 guys, and you're like you can't jump out because you're stuck. So you kind of have to use your shift space, and that'll get you out. So it's kind of like your true escape ability, basically, Crusade. So yeah, literally, it still has the whole favor and the healing thingy for allies. So you can still, go through allies and jump again. But the nice thing is that because it goes through enemies, you can go like that, boom, and then you can do it resets your space as well. I know I have no cooldowns on, but it's just to illustrate the point, basically. Next up is the Shift Q ability, which is Sanctuary, and I really like this ability a lot. It's like it's kind of like Barco's R, but it's better. So it heals for 20, and then it applies a shield of 20. So total of 40 health, but it's split between healing and shields. So the shield lasts for 2.5 seconds, which is just nice, I think. Not too long, not too short. But the nice part is that it heals in an area. So if you're clumped up together with your allies, doing 20 healing to everybody is like 60 healing, then you have another 60 shield on top of everybody, which is pretty strong, I would say. Of course, it does take 25 energy, but that's okay, I think. I think a lot of his abilities actually give him energy, quite a bit of energy actually. Like for example, his E gives 7% energy. So you can imagine, let's say I use up all his... I can't use up his energy like that. Alright, so let me just use up all his energy. Right. And use E, and let's see. He should gain about 21 energy, just like that. So like one more hit, and you should get like 1 charge, for example. So pretty good. And it's not too hard to hit this ability since you have kind of long cast time. You can take your time to aim it if you like, you know. And yeah, I think the last one actually has a longer cast time. The third attack. So just have to be careful with that a little bit. And so I don't think energy should be a problem for him, I think. But he does need to use a lot of his EX though, because his EX base is really good. His EXQ as well, his R is good as well. So he will need a lot of energy, I think. So the ultimate is Aegis of Valor, and what it does, he throws your returning Aegis, deals 28 to 44 damage and inflicts incapacitate. Damage increases with travel distance. The Aegis lands on the ground on impact. Picking it up or catching it when it returns applies Divinity. And Divinity is the buff which shields ally, absorbing 24 damage, increases movement speed by 25%, and damage output by 25%. Lasts 5 seconds. So yeah, let's test it out. Aegis of Valor! So that's the 2.5 second incap. It did about 38 to 39 damage because of how far it was. If I pick this up, I get the Divinity buff of 24 shields. And I also do more damage. And I believe I move faster as well. So yeah, let's try it when it returns. See how much damage it does. So it does 44 even though it's not actually at the maximum distance. That's because as long as you reach the end, it should do 44 damage basically. So when it comes back, yeah, it always does 44. There we go. And then you get the buff. You can sort of, you got the shields and you do a little bit extra damage and you move a little bit faster as well. Pretty cool. Just be careful that if you throw it out and it can't, and you hit a wall, it sort of just drops. So you gotta go pick it up yourself, or your ally can pick it up, which is pretty interesting. And so yeah, that's pretty much all his abilities actually. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And I'm really liking his kit actually. And there are a couple of limitations like I was saying, right? Like with his spacebar stopping, you know, before hitting any ally, if you don't have like an ally next to you. And of course you don't get the resets and everything when you don't have an ally as well. So credits to Poop or Testing for finding this out. But if you hold your mouse one and you spam cancel with your charge attack, you can do this. So it's reminiscent of Thor spinning his hammer before he flies. And because of the wind pressure, it actually sucks up all the pots as well. Alright, so on his Battlerites, his mouse one has 2 Battlerites. His first one is Enchanted Weapon, and what it does is Hammer of Justice deals 2 bonus damage when affected by favor. So usually you do like 10 damage, but if you have favor, you do 2 extra damage. So say favor there, it should do 22 damage, and then it should be 12, and should be another one 12 if you are fast enough basically. Personally, I don't think it's that great. I mean, it's some nice bonus damage, but it's not always that you can like space into someone, passing through a teammate in the process, and then like you know, hit for a lot of times. So I don't think it's that useful. It could be useful in a one-on-one maybe, but other than that, not too great I think. Next up is Cleave. I personally like this one a lot. What it does is Charge Hammer of Justice deals 2 bonus damage, deals full damage, and inflicts stun on secondary targets as well. So before this, without this Battlerite, you only deal the stun and the 20 damage to one guy and then 12 damage to the other 2. But with this Battlerite, we'll have to wait for the charge attack to cool down. You deal 22 damage to all targets and stun all of them, which is pretty useful, especially whenever like you're fighting for the orb, for example, with other melees. You literally hit everything around. Boom, like everything in front here will all get 22 damage and stun, which is pretty amazing. If the enemy team has like even 1 or 2 melee enemies, this cleave right is pretty amazing. And next up, his first mouse to Battlerite is Devotion, and what it does is Holy Light healing increases by 3 when healing self or allies affected by favor. So let's take some damage and do that healing. Let's take about 45 damage worth. So favor, and now we do like 18 healing to ourselves. Oh, I forgot to take this. Whoops. It's supposed to be 21 then. 18 is just from the favor buff itself. Alright, here we go. 22. Boom. Boom. Lots of healing. 22 healing. So if you really need healing, I guess this is one way of keeping up with the heals in 3s if you are the only support, I suppose. The other Battlerite, Faith, which makes your Holy Light recharge 100% faster when Smite is active. Personally, I don't think it's that great, because let me show you why. So say we use 3 healing charges, and then we use Smite, and say we just leave it up the whole time, all we get is like just two charges, right? And most of the time when you use your Smite, you're attacking, and once you finish attacking, you actually use up the buff basically, so you don't benefit fully if you attack straight away. So you kind of wanna, so you'll be like actually waiting to cast the third one if you pick this Battlerite. I mean, I guess it could be okay if you feel like you run out of charges a lot in 3 vs 3s, but I think Devotion seems like it's better for burst healing. I guess if you need a lot of burst healing, Devotion is what you want, and Faith is probably better for sustained healing or like chip damage and stuff like that. Moving on to the next Battlerite for Intervene. It's Penitence, and Intervene deals 2 bonus damage and reduces incoming healing by 33% for 3 seconds. So I think this is pretty good against like a support champion. So if they have the enemy team has a support champion, let me pick this up. Make sure I have the no cooldowns thing so I can actually use my spacebar. There they go, that's the Penitence. And just as like with most other support champions, they have like the Battlerite, which reduces the incoming healing for enemy targets, right? Ulric has one as well, and it reduces incoming healing by 33%, which is actually quite a lot. It's quite a big deal actually, but of course it only lasts for 3 seconds, so pretty offensive. But I think it's really good if the enemy has even 1 support, I think, because very often, like say you charge into this target, right, and you start attacking them, the support will try to heal the person that you're attacking, but their heals are like basically like, you know, reduced by like 33%, so it's a pretty big deal, I think. Next up is Divine Protection. Personally, I really like this, and I feel like it's a must pick because Favor reduces damage taken by 15% with Divine Protection, and so this means you take less damage. So instead of the 15 that the guy usually does, it's just 13 for 5 seconds, okay? So it's pretty amazing. Just like, you know, standing there, I already like blocked 8 damage because of it. The reason why Xander is so good because of his Heart's buff. This one basically gives your Favor buff something similar, right? And you can pretty much give Favor to all your allies because of how frequent you can use your spacebar. So I think it's really good, this one. I think it's a must pick, at least to me. Moving on to Initiation. Intervene travel distance increases by 33% when affected by Favor. So usually this is how far you can go. But with Favor, so we need to wait for this guy to come out first. Heal him, and then we can travel like pretty much the shift space distance, I think. So yeah, pretty good. I don't know how useful this might be. It might be more useful in cases where you're with a really aggressive melee maybe, and you're struggling to keep up, right? Because this is as far as you can dodge. You can sort of fly, or maybe actually wait a minute, because you can only get this when you have Favor. I'm guessing maybe actually it's only better when you have ranged teammates in that case, since you will like favor, and then you will like, and when they like start to move away from you, you can like fly really far to continue like sort of staying together as a team. It's hard to say, I don't know. It's hard to imagine what this might be used for, because all it does is increases the dash distance. And it doesn't even increase the first dash. You kind of have to use it on a teammate to actually get use out of it. So I'm not sure of how good this right is, I think. Anyways, next up is light speed, and absorbing an attack with Radiant Shield increases your movement speed by 15% for 3 seconds, stacks up to 3 times. So let's start to block some damage. Oh, it applies immediately actually. This guy attacks really fast. So let's try to do that again. So pretty good. I think I don't really feel like it's necessary. It's a nice effect, but like you already got so much mobility in your space bars because of favor and the reset cooldown and stuff. I'm not sure about how useful this Battlerites would be, but it's pretty cool at least. I think if you're up against like say a Jade or Esmo for example, who attacks really fast, and you can probably absorb like a lot of hits within that short time that you'll be having the shield up, then maybe you can get like quite a lot of movement speed out of it, and like basically move across the map really quickly, I think. Next up is Light's Embrace. Blocking an attack with Radiant Shield sends out a wave of light, healing nearby allies for 10 health. So let's try this out. So let's say this guy is like really low, I start blocking. So every time, oh, it just does it once. So it doesn't even heal more than once, I think. Or maybe it's just not long enough to really heal. I can't tell. But I'm guessing it should heal multiple times, judging by what they say here. So it heals yourself as well, so that's important to note. Yeah. Again, for a little bit of extra healing. Not sure if it's really necessary, because a lot of people like will stop attacking you when you start blocking, especially because if they don't want to like get blinded and stuff. So I'm not sure how useful this Battlerites might be. On to Smite. Halo. Activating Smite grants a shield. It absorbs up to 14 damage for 3 seconds. So when you use your E, you have like a shield, which can be quite useful. But I think the other two rights are much better, I think. It just gives you a little bit of survivability boost, basically. I'm not sure if it's too useful, because when you use your Smite, you'll be engaging at a range, right? So you wouldn't really be taking damage much, I guess, if you're trying to attack from range. So I think it's just okay. Halo, I mean. Considering that you don't actually... when you use Smite, you can't actually heal, right? Because you sort of forgo your heal. I mean, you can still heal with spacebar, but yeah, you're actually kind of like sacrificing your healing capabilities for range capabilities. I guess it's quite okay. Next up is Holy Fire. What it does is the third Smite attack deals 4 bonus damage and explodes upon impact, dealing 16 area damage to nearby enemies. So it basically makes your last E super amazing. So let's go in. So let's just use 1, 2, and then makes your third one super strong, basically 26 damage and then 16 damage to other people nearby. It's good if enemies are clumped up, or you can use it to take the AWP, right? 14, 18, and then 26. That should be 60 damage, I think. I just shot 2. If this lets you take the AWP immediately with just one ability, it would have been fantastic. But I guess you can sort of say use this 3 times and then go for the spacebar or something to just quickly take the AWP, I guess. So, but in that case, then you don't really need Holy Fire anyways if you're using so many things. So yeah, I think it's just alright, because it's like sort of you're putting all your eggs in one basket, right? If you miss that third shot, this Battlerites is like pretty much useless. So I think it's just okay. But I really like the last one though, Holy Shackles, which we will get into soon. Anyway, on to the next Battlerites, Holy Shackles. Smite projectiles inflicts a 35% snare for 1 second. I personally like this a lot. Because look at that. That's 3 seconds of snare just from your 3 hits. onto an enemy, and it's amazing for like peeling for allies, or just in general, just when you're trying to kill someone basically, which is what you might be trying to do with E, with your smite. So, you know, makes it a lot easier to aim as well. So, yeah. Next up is Vindicator. I think it's a Battlerite that's really useful because it refreshes your spacebar cooldown in addition to reducing the cooldown of your R. So say I can do this, you do this, and then my space will be ready again, and then I can, like, I don't know, for more damage or something, perhaps. And plus, like, because your R is one of your main iframes, right? Seeing that his spacebar is sometimes unreliable, in the sense that it might just hit like into an ally and an enemy, and reducing the duration of the iframe. R is nice that you can. Oop. And the fact that you can put people out for like 2 seconds every 12 seconds is also quite amazing, I think. And finally, Godlike. It's very simple. All effects of Divinity are doubled. So basically, when you use your ult, you get 50% increased movement speed, increased damage 50%, and you also get a 48 damage shield, basically. So yeah, 48 damage shield. Boom. Boom. This guy doesn't even attack fast enough to take down the shield. I think this is alright, only because your shift space, your shift Q, and your R are all really good. So it's probably hard to find the energy for, you know, using your ultimate ability. And plus you don't have inspiration as well to increase your energy gain, or like get an extra charge, or sorry, an extra bar of energy basically. So it might be a bit hard to use his ultimate a lot of times. So I don't think the Battlerites is that worth it, as with like most other ultimate Battlerites, I would say. So I think it's just alright, unless maybe you have some sort of comp that works around it. Like say if you give this to a Shifu, that'll be amazingly scary, for example, or Freya, you know. A Freya with the Divinity would be really scary, because once she applies her static, and she's gonna deal like what, 20 over damage per hit onto an enemy, and you basically can't lose her for like 5 seconds. That is a little bit scary, I would say. So yeah, those were all of Ulric's abilities and Battlerites. After covering all of that, I jumped into a couple of games with Ulric with a friend to test him out, and I think my first impressions of him is that he's quite balanced overall. The healing he can output seems fair, especially if you use his spacebars and mouse tools correctly, and he can do some decent damage as well with his charge attacks, ranged smites, and his other abilities. Overall, I think he's not exactly easy to play, seeing as you need to be very mobile, and using the spacebars correctly can be quite tricky in some cases. You have to constantly keep track of the favor buff on your allies, their position, and what they might do, to make sure you space through them as often as you can. Choosing when to use smite can also be quite tricky, since at any one time you can either deal damage from afar or heal your teammates, and not both at the same time. Swapping from one to the other has a decently long cast time as well, and so you might miss opportunities to heal allies or be unable to heal at crucial moments, and you want to be quite careful there, and so that's why I think he's not really beginner friendly. All in all, I think that Ulric is a pretty solid champion who is pretty good both in 2s and 3s, but maybe a little bit more powerful in 3s since he has more options with his spacebars. He seems to be pretty good at peeling and supporting his team with protection, healing, and utility, but he seems rather weak in really cramped spaces where his mobility is limited or when he doesn't have any allies around him. That's not to say he isn't able to hold his own on a one-on-one, but it is just a little bit tougher. So yeah, those were my first impressions on Ulric. Do let me know what you guys think about him and tell me about your experiences with him and all that. I'd love to hear about them from you guys. So that's mostly it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it useful. Thank you everyone for watching, and until next time guys, I hope you guys have a great day, keep gaming, stay chill, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.
Claimed the ore. won the orb. Death vortex approaching. Your team claimed the orb. Ready, go! Round one.
I might have enjoyed this a bit too much. I may need to repent.